All right, here is the 60 HD Plus controller. You'll notice on the controller you have a couple different colors. That is an important thing to note. Your orange, when selected via this dial, is going to be your track drive mechanisms. So your forward, backwards on your right track, forward, backwards on your left track. And that is going to be your track expansion in and out on one side, and then the other side is going to be right there. You have your enable button on the top right, which when using basket controls, you will need to hold that to run any of your aerial functions, as you'll see in yellow. There's it on the dial. Your electro pump, you can hold that. It'll give you about 15 minutes worth of battery power to bring the machine back down in an emergency in the case of your engine going out, you running out of fuel, any of those. You'll see that on the left side of the remote, we have our key switch. When we have this turned to this position, we are able to sync the remote. You'll have to make sure that your ignition is on and that it is switched over to remote controls, which I will show you shortly. You do have a basket level button. To enable your basket leveling, you will have to be switched over to aerial controls, hold down on this toggle switch to the white icon, and then your top left rubber bumper will now become a basket level mechanism. Your outriggers are controlled by this. You always have to hold the outrigger until it finds its level position. It has multiple positions that it will level to, but it will come up, stop. You'll have to let off the switch and then press it again to continue going.
Service, you have a call on line 1. Service, call line 1.
This is your ground speed switch, pretty self-explanatory. This is your e-stop. I normally urge people not to use the e-stop and to use the engine start stop instead, and then turn the blue button off on the remote, followed with the ignition on the machine itself. We can ignore this icon here. Again, this is start stop. And last but not least, this is going to be our control for our different functions. Yellow icons, we have our telescope in and out, upper boom up down, lower boom up down, turret rotation. On our LED screen, we're going to have multiple things. We'll have displayed our outrigger position 1 or 2. We'll have our outriggers saying that they are down, making contact with the ground via the switches in the knuckles. This is going to be for our upper boom. This is going to be if the turret is centered. This is the upper boom. This is the upper boom retract. And then this is for our right side. This is ground pressure. This is ground pressure. And these are going to be the positions for the outrigger legs. It's important to note that per side, we need to be in the same position. So our outrigger legs always have to be per side, either in 1 or 2 or 1 or 2. They can be 1 and 2 or 1 and 2, but they cannot be 1 and 2. And I'll show you that shortly. This is our caution light. If something is going on with the machine, this will come on. It will also blink the red battery if it's having issue with a joystick being stuck or something happening with the machine that it's not registering a button function. This will blink in a certain pattern, and I'll supply that pattern to you so that way you know. This is going to be what degree the turret is at, and then what degree the chassis level sensor is. This is basket centered. This is outriggers deployed, ready to fly. This is this is aerial, outriggers deployed, ready to fly, and this is on the track. So it will always be lit up in one of these positions, sometimes in 2. Like if it's on the outriggers and it's ready to fly, those 2 lights will be on. If it's not, then it will be driving and this light will be on. This is basket level, basket overload. So if you go over the 507 pounds, This is if the basket pin is missing, which it's not applicable on this machine. This is if you're too far extended or getting close to being too far extended, this light will come on. If you're all the way extended and it won't let you go any further, it will lock you out and only allow you to retract the boom. This light will come on. This light is for our outrigger collision. If our upper boom is too low to the
Service
ground
and call on 2, service.
and we risk hitting the outrigger legs, this light will come on. This is obviously battery power. This is low battery. This light can also come on if you have your e-stop depressed. It will flash like it has a dead battery. Always triple check that your e-stop isn't pushed in. That is another reason why we try and avoid using the e-stop. And then obviously it will flash if there is a code, if there's a problem with the switches themselves. This is to tether to the machine, to plug in right here. Go over that in a moment. This is going to be the battery for the remote. And that is pretty much everything for this part of the remote. Alrighty, sir. So when you first get your machine, to start it up, sync the remote and get it ready to go, these will be the steps you'll follow. So first and foremost, you don't have to have the remote connected. This is only for when you start using the aerial controls from the ground. So you won't have the remote connected. This tether though will be in this box. You'll first start by coming over to the side of the machine. You will turn this key switch into the on position. If you don't get any lights coming on or sound on that panel, you can come over here and you have to turn on your battery disconnect on the side of the engine. So you'll turn on your battery disconnect, have your key into the on position. You can start it from here, but I generally recommend to come over onto this side to your remote. Turn your blue key switch into the upright position. You'll have your lights come on and you can click the green sync button underneath the remote. Once we do that, our remote is live and we can start and run the machine. We can drive it from this position by using my paddle here and here when it's on the ground, obviously. When we want to deploy our outriggers, we can use this button. In the position that I have it in right now, it is in 2 on all sides. And what I mean by position 2 is we have the pins all in the second zone, meaning the legs are at the furthest point apart. You'll see over here. And last but not least, over here. So now we have it up in the air. We found our level position. This is probably 3 stages up. We have it leveled. We have the basket level. We always want to make sure before we go to fly it, we have the basket level. We can fire up the machine and we can start to fly. Now, to fly this machine or use any of the aerial functions, we'll always have to use the enable button or the foot switch. Can't quite reach the foot switch right now, but we hold this down and we will run our functions. So right now I want to go upper boom up into the air. Forgive me, I'm trying to do this with and we begin to raise it. I always want to do my upper boom first to lift it up and out of the way, and then I can proceed to run any of my other functions. So say I want to telescope out, I'll have to go higher into the air to do so because it does not want me to telescope out right now because I'm too low to the ground. It basically doesn't want me to crash into anything. There is my telescope out. Say if I wanted to do turret rotation, I would hit this guy right here. and I could rotate my turret. An important note, when rotating your turret, you always want to make sure that when you come back, you line up these two dashes. And it is a non-continuous turret, so while the machine will never let you over-rotate, there is the potential to over-rotate when you're using your emergency control. So you just have to be really careful that you rotate the same way back that you did in the first place if you ever have to use emergency controls. Speaking of emergency controls, there are all of our live controls to enable them for your aerial. You will turn this in here, and you will turn this one right here. So this gets turned in, this gets turned in, and now each one of these live coils will correspond with the images shown here. So you'll have your basket level, you'll have your telescope, you'll have your upper boom, lower boom, rotate, and they will all go, number 5 is here, number 4 is here, and so on and so forth. For our track drives, this and this are for this side track to go forward and backwards, and you will have the same stack on the other side for the opposite track, forward and backwards underneath. Hydraulic cartridges, obviously your diesel tank. This is for when you're using your emergency manual pump. You can switch back and forth between your aerial and your outriggers. Forgive me, we have not washed this yet, so it is a little crusty. If you have to use your outrigger controls, you'll have to turn in this valve right here and this valve over here, and then it will allow these to be live. Each one of these corresponds with this diagram here. This leg, so on and so forth. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the last one being your tracks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all right here. Tie down points for the machine are here and here, same on the other side. There are lift points as well. If you wanted to crane it into a backyard, you do have to have the machine fully folded up, sitting on the tracks. To be able to use the crane, you do not want to try and lift it with the crane while it is deployed like this. If you ever need to bypass the e-stop while it's in the basket or tethered to the machine, you can do so by flipping this. This will by-stop the e-pass in case your operator goes unconscious or something in the basket. You can use that to basically bypass it, to retrieve the operator down from the basket. Your electropump for the machine side is going to be right here, but you do have an electropump control on your remote as well. With the machine off and not running, you can go ahead and hit this button here, and you can hear the electropump running. Again, that will give you about 15 minutes worth of hydraulic power to lower the machine down. You can either use the electropump for your controls here or your emergency controls. You just have to make sure that if you are using your electropump, that you have it selected to the correct function. So when using our electropump right now, we have it set into into aerial controls, but you can also set it to be used for your outrigger legs. So you have two different options. This is your battery. It is a 12-volt system. You have a couple of grease fittings underneath the machine. This is for your slew ring for your turret. You want to make sure that you give those a pump of grease about every 2 weeks, and you want to make sure that you rotate the machine as you're greasing it. This machine comes with non-marking tracks. If you need to tension your track system, you can remove this cover plate. There is a grease fitting inside of here. When you grease it, it will expand the tracks, tightening them. You always want to make sure that you check your tracks in the air, and you should only be able to get about a finger underneath the mid wheel. And then you know that you have the correct tension on your tracks. Operator manual will be in here. This is your hand pump for the emergency controls. So if you ever need to They are there. When we set up our outrigger legs, we always want to make sure that our pads are nice and straight with the leg. This is our Autech box. This is your receiver for your remote system. And this is going to be the flow control. So on this screen inside of here, it's hard to see right now, but you have P2. P2 is a position code. That means the machine is stabilized. It's developed, stabilized machine. You'll have multiple different codes on this, or position codes, display codes. If you get an error code, it will be a 2-digit number. It'll be things like 79 or 72, 67. All of those codes I'll provide you with the sheet to reference. You can always call me. When you go to fold up your machine, every time you fold up your machine, I ask that you use the home button. Because when using the home button, just holding one button, it will do everything for you. You will not have to worry about getting the turret straight. You will not have to worry about cradling it properly. The home button does all of that for you. So every time you fold up the machine, hold the home button the entire time to bring it back down into the position. Okay, I hold it for a few seconds and then I can let off. And then from here, I can go down with my outriggers. And I can switch my controller to drive. And now while I don't need to have it tethered, I can hold the enable button and I can drive my machine. When you have your remote tethered like this, all of the functions will be the exact same when you have it up in the basket. This is your tether for the basket. That remote will mount right here, and then you'll plug it into the side, and all of the functions will be exactly the same. If you ever want to dump your bucket, you have to have it on the outrigger legs. You have to have it plugged in. You have to have the outrigger legs high enough in the air, and then you can dump the entire basket all the way to the ground by holding this button down, by switching to our basket level and running it, and it will dump the entire bucket down to the ground. You do have an onboard charger. There is a spare battery. And that covers a lot of it. If I missed anything, please feel free to give me a call.